This has to be one of the craziest unsolved murder cases I've ever covered on this page. This is the case of Dorothy Jane Scott. Hi Meg, I talk about your crime. Let's get into the weird details surrounding this case. Dorothy Jane Scott was a 32-year-old single mother living in Stanton, California. Her son's name was Sean and he was only 4 years old. Sean's father didn't live in the area, so Dorothy's parents would help her take care of him when she was at work. Dorothy was one of those girls who preferred to stay at home. She was a devout Christian and she didn't really drink or do drugs. Months before she went missing, she started getting really strange phone calls. There was no caller ID or anything. It was an anonymous man who would call and proclaim his love for her. And then he would follow up by telling her he wanted to kill her. It was all very strange at first, but she didn't take it that seriously until one day he called and told her to look outside her house because there was a gift for her. According to Dorothy's mother, who was there at the time, she went outside and there was a single dead rose on her window shield, meaning whoever this was knew where she lived. The calls got worse and worse and more graphic, and he would start to describe to her how he wanted to cut her up into bits and how he would get her alone and murder her. May 28th, 1980, it was a normal workday for Dorothy. That's until she noticed that one of her colleagues named Conrad didn't look too well and he had a strange mark on his arm. So Dorothy and another coworker named Pam took Conrad to the hospital. Dorothy made a quick stop to her house to check up on her son before they went to the hospital, and she changed her scarf from black to red. This is important for later. Turns out her colleague had been bit by a black widow spider, which is awful, terrifying, but not as terrifying as what happens next. Throughout this entire visit, Dorothy did not leave Conrad's side once, according to Pam. He got discharged at around 11 p.m. and so they were leaving, and Dorothy offered to bring the car around so he didn't have to walk because he wasn't doing so good. He was still quite unwell. According to everyone, she was an extremely caring person, and you can just see it through this story. Conrad and Pam stood waiting for Dorothy to bring the car around, but she never came, and it was taking quite a while. They decided to check out a separate parking lot to make sure that maybe there wasn't any confusion. That's when suddenly her car came speeding towards them with the headlights on, so they didn't actually see who was in the car. They then started waving, trying to get her attention. Maybe she would stop, but she didn't. She just drove off. They thought it was a little strange, but they assumed that maybe there was a sudden emergency with her son or something, so they kind of brushed it off. That's until a few hours later when they realized that no one had actually heard from Dorothy, so the police were called at that point. At 4:30 a.m. the next morning, her car was found burning in an alley. It was about 16 kilometers away from the hospital. About a week into Dorothy's disappearance, her parents started getting phone calls from the same man who was calling her before. He would call almost every single Wednesday night and say something along the lines of, "I've got her, she's with me, I've taken her." The calls were never long enough to actually trace where they were coming from, and it was the 80s, so the technology wasn't as good as it is today. On the 12th of June 1980, the same man calls the Orange County Register. They were publishing papers about the case, and according to them, he said, "I killed her, I killed Dorothy Scott, she was my love, I caught her cheating with another man, she denied having someone else, I killed her." According to people in Dorothy's life, she wasn't seeing anyone at the time, nor was she really on the dating scene. According to the people who took the call, the guy on the phone knew about the spider bite at the hospital. And he also knew that Dorothy had swapped her scarf from a black scarf to a red scarf before leaving, which were two details that the police had not released to the public. After that phone call, there were no other developments in the case, and it kind of started going cold. That's until 4 years later in 1984. A construction worker came across the remains of a dog, and when he dug further underneath those remains, there were human remains. The dog's remains were said to be there to deter sniffer dogs from finding the human remains underneath. As you can probably guess, the body was Dorothy's. They identified her using dental records. They were never able to determine what the actual cause of death was, though. A strange detail, though, is that a watch was found on her, and the time stopped exactly an hour after she was last seen by her coworkers outside the hospital. It's as if her watch stopped the moment she died. After the remains were found, the calls started up again, claiming to be the person who was responsible for this. But once again, they were never able to track who was calling. This man who was calling was untraceable and is probably still out there today, which is terrifying. But something like this with the calls would not be able to happen today. He would be caught. That is everything they have on this case, and it's been 39 years since her body was found. Cases like these have been solved years and years and years later, so maybe this will be one of them. But for now, it remains unsolved. I wish I could give you a list of suspects, but there is no suspects in this case, except for that anonymous stalker on the other end of the phone. That's it for today's video. Let me know what you think of the case in the comments, and make sure you tell me what case you want me to cover next. Thanks for watching. Bye.
You're laughing at yourself.
Yeah, but I can't do it when you just stood there.
I'm not stood anywhere. I'm lying down reading my book peacefully.
Say,
Woman up.
woman up.
Yep.
Got anything to say? Oh.